Many symptoms that we see is, like we said, the first one, they avoid any happiness causing situation. And you choose to stay in the present rather than thinking about something in the future or something of the past. So one of the topics that we're going to be discussing today is cherophobia. Cherophobia is an intense, irrational fear of having pleasurable experiences, being happy. So there is an aversion towards having a happy or a pleasurable experience. Individuals with cherophobia will try to avoid anything that brings them pleasure because there is a sort of fear that something dooming or something saddening might come later on. So cherophobia being, an irrational fear, and because it comes under phobias, we put them under anxiety disorders. And unlike other phobias like agoraphobia, claustrophobia, all these are more common when compared to cherophobia. So these individuals will take a constant effort to avoid any situations that brings them happiness. Many symptoms that we see is, like we said, the first one, they avoid any happiness causing situation. Secondly, if there are some get-togethers, they might fear that it might result in a later happiness, so they avoid it, or they already plan their schedule, they prevent it from happening. Now, even if they do happen to experience some sort of happiness, some sort of joy, there is always a sense of guilt that is associated with them. Individuals with cherophobia also find it very difficult to express any positive emotions, and therefore can be seen for the most part being a little bit moody or even on the lower or the sadder side. These individuals, while they would like to experience happiness, they cannot, no matter what they try, because every time they do, they feel either more anxious or they feel guilty even. Now, when we talk about cherophobia, we don't have a clear reason as to why it develops. But then, like other anxiety disorders and other phobias mainly, it can be developed due to a genetic predisposition. It can be due to environmental factors. You learn to be scared of happiness, especially in a culture where there is a lot of superstition, a lot of handed down traditions. There were sayings like, if you experience a lot of happiness right now, it is usually followed by a period of sadness. So people who strongly fit into and follow these kind of traditions are more likely to develop cherophobia. Now, when we also talk about cherophobia, it is important to mention that we have a lot of anecdotal evidence supporting this kind of phobia. It is also probably because over time, now there is a reduction in superstition, people are getting more educated, and a lot of things that were passed down are being questioned for their rationality. So it could be that with a lot of understanding, with a lot of education, this kind of phobia has reduced over the previous generations compared to our generation now. As a result, we have lesser anecdotal evidences, and therefore it could be one of the reasons why cherophobia has sort of reduced in number. When we come to discussing how to treat cherophobia, because like I said before, we do not have a pinpointed evidence as to why cherophobia occurs, we usually start off with CBT. And CBT mainly does involve looking into your thoughts, understanding its rationality, questioning it, and then coming to a more balanced idea of what a situation is. So helping the clients to question the validity of their thoughts, seeing if it does make sense, or reframing it to see it in a different perspective can help clients understand if I should be going forward with an idea of my happiness can cause, sorrow later, or me being happy leads to a lot of anxiety. So that is where CBT works. Coming into another more useful, or let me say a more used form of therapy, is exposure therapy. So when we come to exposure therapy, we expose the client to exactly what they're afraid of. But because this is done under a supervision with a mental health professional, it is in a controlled situation, we have no forms of danger. Exposing the client to exactly what they're afraid of will help them to overcome what we would call a safety behavior. Overcoming these safety behaviors shows that they can move to the other side without getting anxious, without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling guilty. So exposure therapy has shown to work very well with phobias, and therefore it does work with cherophobia as well. Next, we have mindfulness-based therapies. So when we talk about mindfulness therapy, it is all about being in the present. You're aware of your emotions, you are aware of your thoughts, and you choose to stay in the present rather than thinking about something in the future or something of the past. In cherophobia, one of the main things that we talked about is the individual finds it difficult to experience or be in happy states of being or situations because they might fear that something might happen later on. So that is a very future-oriented thinking. So bringing them back to the present, teaching them how to be mindful in certain activities, and later carrying it on to all the different activities that they do will help them to stay oriented to the present. And mindfulness-based cognitive therapy combines mindfulness along with CBT. So in this process, they are staying in the present. Along with this, they start questioning the validity of their thoughts. And anytime they catch themselves, going to the past or the present, they can mindfully bring themselves back and then choose to stay in the present. Another method is definitely the use of support groups. For any sort of therapy or any sort of mental illness, we do have group therapy and support groups. This becomes extremely important and helpful because they are relating with people who are going through the same thing or somebody who has overcome the same situation. So in relating to people like that, they see that they are not alone in a situation or alone in a problem, and it also gives them hope that they can overcome it. So support groups becomes a very important factor in helping individuals overcome cherophobia. And lastly, what we will discuss in terms of therapy is medications. When it comes to medications, there's no exact medication for cherophobia. But like all mental illnesses, there can be comorbidity. They might entail maybe signs of depression or symptoms of anxiety. Because like we talked about, cherophobia involves people cancelling out a lot of social events. This sort of leads to isolation. It also leads them to let go of a lot of activities that they did enjoy. So this takes away any sort of pleasure that they had. So as a result, to help with symptoms of anxiety and depressions, medications are also put. Now, while we did put cherophobia as one of the phobias, it is not generalized. Not every person, experiences cherophobia in the same way. So when we talk to a mental health professional or even indicating a treatment plan, it is always tailored to the client rather than giving a generalized plan.